If you truly appreciate real-life accursed journeys into the void, do not even think of missing tonight's episode. Handprints and Footprints of the Devil. Footprints and handprints are said to have been left in stone by Satan in widely scattered locations on the planet. Tonight we visit the places he left those imprints on Earth, and we're starting right now. Here is an article at atlasobscura.com, and we're going to go through 5 articles at the famous Atlas Obscura rather rapidly here because they're short. The first one is for the Devil's Pulpit, Creget, Scotland. A strange rock with a sinister reputation lurks within the crimson waters of this Scottish glen. Red waters, huh, over in Scotland? Very interesting. I guess it's this stone here, maybe? Blood red water courses through Finnick Glen, a majestic sliver of Scotland, and surges around a strange rock with a sinister reputation. Elders, thank you for the super chat. Super chat, and it says he's a #1 fan. That I know, sir, that I know. Thank you so much, Elder. You are the man. Welcome, Takahama Olsen, too. The name Devil's Pulpit originally referred to the mushroom-shaped rock. Yeah, right there, right? That sometimes pokes above the rushing stream. Some say the rock is where the devil stood to address his followers, the crimson current swirling at his feet. Others say druids held secret meetings here, hidden from sight, within the shadows of the gorge's looming walls. Still more tell tales of witches using the rock as an execution block. However, over time, many people began referring to all of Finnick Gorge as the Devil's Pulpit. It's still a fitting name, as the red water certainly gives the place an eerie, almost sinister aura. Though its color isn't actually the work of the devil, it's merely the result of the underlying red sandstone. But this doesn't make the gorge feel any less otherworldly. Climbing down these slippery steps, of course referred to as the Devil's Steps, and entering this realm of verdant moss-covered rocks and ruby-toned water reveals an enchanted world, where thin beams of sunlight shine spotlights on the gurgling stream. Okay, next is... What's it say here? Know before you go. The descent can be slippery and dangerous. Takahama Olsen, too, thank you for being our producer. Much appreciated, ma'am. Don't go through the gate in the parking area, and instead cross the road and find a way into the trees. Continue inward and keep following the gorge. At one point, you will probably hear people speaking, which will mean you're going the right way. Keep going and you will find a downward slope with a rope attached. That's the way down. Be careful how you go, as it is slippery. My goodness gracious. What excellent directions. I think there's more than one picture as well. You get a view over here, but not as bright. Another view. Another angle. Long distance. Farther down and or upstream. Or maybe from the pulpit itself, who knows. Okay, next. Again at atlasobscura.com. In Milan, Italy, the Devil's Column, the mark of the Devil's horns, on a marble column in Milan. Holy moly. Just outside the St. Ambrose Church in Milan stands a white marble column with 2 prominent holes at the base. According to the legend, the devil tried to seduce Ambrose into temptation. Frustrated by the indifference of the holy man, the devil hit the column with his head, piercing the marble with his horns. If you use your imagination, you can still smell the sulfur, and by leaning close, hear the sounds of hell. We ought to get a recording from there. And no more notes. Okay, next. Again at atlasobscura.com. Devil's Kitchen at Caesar's Head State Park in Cleveland, South Carolina. According to local lore, this narrow passageway through two large rocks was accidentally created by the devil himself. Look at that way. Isn't that interesting? Look at that. Holy cow. Yeah, that's a thin walk away there. Wow. And leads out to this nice area. But then you got to go back to where you once belonged. Isn't that scary? Nestled on the Blue Ridge Mountains of South Carolina, Caesar's Head State Park is known for its spectacular views of the Mountain Bridge Wilderness area and is named for a granitic gneiss rock formation located atop the escarpment. And that's nice starting with a G, not starting with an N. Granitic gneiss. The origin of the name Caesar's Head is disputed, although some have claimed the rock bears a resemblance to the famous Roman general. Trails throughout the park offer beautiful views of the mountainous landscape. The short path to the viewing area that overlooks the Caesar's Head rock passes through another intriguingly named geological curiosity, a narrow passageway between two giant rocks called Devil's Kitchen. When the trail reaches Devil's Kitchen, a set of stairs descends deep down into the rocky gap, which is just wide enough for one person to pass through. The formation was created thousands of years ago as water on the mountain froze and expanded, causing the rock to crack open from the pressure. The granite, a type of metamorphic rock, breaks at a 90-degree angle when it cracks, which formed the narrow passage flanked by tall rock walls. The name of the geological formation is another story. It comes from a myth dating back to the days when the area was settled by Scot-Irish immigrants who enjoyed brewing their own alcohol. According to the story, the devil himself made a particularly hot brew here and spilled a drop of it on the rock, splitting the rock open on the spot. Shortly after passing through the Devil's Kitchen, the trail arrives at a small overlook, offering a panoramic view of the eponymous Caesar's Head rock formation. Proceed with caution, it says here. Good advice. Next, at atlasobscura.com. Thank you, atlasobscura.com. The Devil's Footprint in Manchester, Maine. A strange mark in the stone fence of a cemetery, fabled to have been made by the devil himself. I know these introductory ones haven't all been hand and foot marks, but all the videos are. All the videos are of actual marks. And not just something they call the Devil's Kitchen. Look at that, will you? Rock with the devil's footprint imprinted on its surface. In this little myth, a crew of construction workers from some vague time period were engaged in building a road. When they came upon a boulder that proved to be immovable by natural means. How about by man or beast? One of the construction workers climbed up on the rock and swore he would sell his soul to the devil if that rock could be moved. The next day, the rock had been moved, and the construction worker had disappeared. All that was left as evidence of the deal were some strange indentations in the rock. Apparently, that rock is now part of a cemetery wall, and it is semi-famous for holding the devil's footprint. The North Manchester Meeting House was built in 1793 and still serves as a church, complete with the above-mentioned cemetery. The fossilized footprint of the devil can be found in a rock on the corner of the wall right beside the meeting house, with the impressions facing the house. The stone actually has two imprints, a triangular one that is supposed to be the mark of a cloven hoof, and another that looks vaguely like a set of human footprints merged. The arrangement of the indentations has also catalyzed another story about a man being chased by Satan across the rock. Somebody with a can of spray paint has made the task of seeing the mark easier by painting it. Interesting. I thought that was natural rock underneath, that color of the natural rock underneath. No, they gotta paint it to make sure you don't miss it. There's the cloven one right there. And there's the two footprints together, I guess. Why did I think I saw a third one? Yeah, what's with this third one over here? This is spray painted too. We are not getting enough pictures here. Wow. And the close-up of both footprints, which is obscured by the very sloppy spray paint job. At least they could have done a good job on the spray paint, right? There's the meeting house in all its glory. Let's look at some art. Here, a list verse written by Deborah Kelly is a story entitled 10 Marks Supposedly Left on Earth by the Devil. And it begins, humans are renowned for being able to spot patterns where there are none and see images in random shapes and patterns. It's kept us occupied for countless lazy Sunday afternoons, picking out the shapes of animals and dragons in the clouds. It's also helped us enrich our legends and folklore around the world. Example number 10, Der Teufelsstritt in Germany. The silhouette of the Church of Our Lady is unmistakable against the Munich skyline. The Germans say München. While most might sing the praises of its 14th century windows or 18th century gilded reliefs, a more interesting feature is the so-called Devil's Footprint. Church architect Georg von Helsbach first showed up in Munich city records in 1441. He was appointed the architect to the entire city in 1468. In that role, he oversaw many other architects, but the Church of Our Lady is still considered one of his masterpieces. According to legend, he got a little otherworldly help when he made an agreement with the devil. Funding was difficult to come by, and if von Halsbach agreed to make the church a dark, windowless monument to the night, the devil would pay for it. The agreement was signed and sealed. When the building was finished, it was time to deliver. The architect escorted the devil inside to prove that the bargain had been upheld. From where they stood, there were no windows visible, and the devil declared that von Halsbach's side of the bargain had been completed. When the devil took another step forward, however, he saw windows that had been hidden behind the church's massive interior columns. He promptly threw a temper tantrum. When he stamped his footprint stayed in the church floor. The story may date back as far as the 17th century, when the large window at the end of the church was blocked by an altar. Perhaps the tile was added afterward in support of the story. I don't think they did things like that back then. Somehow I don't think so. Number 9, the Devil's Tramping Ground in the U.S. The devil might go down to Georgia, but according to some centuries-old folklore, he comes out to North Carolina. Down a country road in Chatham County is a barren 12-meter circle that's 40 feet in diameter, I guess. 12 meter, 40 feet. Just says 12-meter circle. Must be diameter. It's been given the nickname the Devil's Tramping Ground. Every night at midnight, it is said, the devil comes out and stomps around there in a circle, planning the night's activities before heading off to do his work. People have tried to grow plants there, but they die. Supposedly, any objects left within the circle during the day will be gone overnight. Other ideas to explain the circle are mostly of extraterrestrial and paranormal variety. King of Kong says, dang, I had to listen to a 30-second ad. If Bill gets a commission, I won't complain. Yeah, Kanga, I get a pretty good commission. Thank you, buddy. The commissions are much better on Twitch than they are on YouTube. Believe me. Thank you so much, Kay. Locals have often used the place as a meeting spot for parties, but some testify that they've failed spectacularly in their attempts to spend the entire night. They cite a rather creepy feeling as the reason. Scientists have tried to figure out why nothing will grow in this weird spot, but they're stumped. Soil scientist Rich Hayes first thought that the copper or salt content of the soil was the reason. Although none of his tests were conclusive, they did reveal there was something odd about the circle. The barren soil had a higher pH level and higher concentrations of zinc, sodium, and copper than the ground outside of it. The readings were not high enough to prevent things from growing, however. Campfires built at this party spot might explain some of Hayes' readings, but they don't account for stories about the circle that go back hundreds of years. Strangely, compasses can also be thrown off by a few degrees when you're walking through the circle. No one can explain that either. So far, it's added up to a big mystery. Groovy. Number 8, the Goldstone, England. The Goldstone got its name from the fact that it's a stone with some gold flecks in it. Well, that's fairly unimaginative. The folklore about the rock is much more impressive. The stone that now sits as a centerpiece in Hove Park. Actually, it's on the edge of Hove Park. It's not in the center. It's on one of the edges. Kind of near to a corner, kind of. Was reportedly first unearthed by the devil. I've been there through the magic of Google Earth. When he was digging a trench through the area, with the goal of channeling the water to flood all the local churches, He stubbed his toe on the massive Goldstone. Furious, he kicked the stone as far as he could. It landed in what's now called Goldstone Valley, but that's not the end of the trouble it caused. At the beginning of the 1800s, there were more tales told about the Goldstone. According to local legends, the rock had been sacred to the Druids, who once worshipped their mysterious deities in ancient Britain. That sparked massive interest in the stone. As the story spread, curiosity seekers flocked from all over to see it. But the Goldstone was in the middle of a farmer's field, and he was sick of his crops being destroyed by determined yet thoughtless intruders. So the landowner, William Marsh Ridgeon, buried the stone along with a series of smaller yet still sizable surrounding stones. The location of these stones was discovered in 1900. They were unearthed and moved to Hove Park. Casual Kitty says, "Night terrors. Terrors, Mom was on the phone. I looked at Google Maps. There might be a McDonald's at the pyramids. I heard that somewhere, but there's definitely a Marriott hotel with an attached golf course." 4. Thank you to Casual Kitty for doing that research. Even then, the Goldstone continued to attract its share of folklore. On one side of the stone is a naturally weathered pattern that looks a bit like a human face. That gave rise to the story about the Devil's Run-In with the massive stone. In 1858, the stone was called the Godstone on a Brighton map. The stone was also at the center of a commemoration of some local Druidic chapters in 1929. Let's check out some art.
Through the ghoul-guarded gateways of slumber, past the wan-mooned abysses of night, I have lived o'er my lives without number. I have sounded all things with my sight, and I struggle and shriek ere the day break, being driven to madness with fright. I have whirled with the earth at the dawning, when the sky was a vaporous flame. I have seen the dark universe yawning, where the black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or luster or name. I had drifted o'er seas without ending, under sinister grey-clouded skies that the many-forked lightning is rending, that resound with hysterical cries, with the moans of invisible demons that out of the green waters rise. I have plunged like a deer through the arches of the hoary primordial grove, where the oaks feel the presence that marches, and stalks on where no spirit dares rove. And I flee from a thing that surrounds me and leers through dead branches above.
Okay, let's check out one more story from Atlas Obscura here, shall we? Yes, Bill, yes. Here's the Devil's Fingerprints at Holy Trinity Church in Blyberg, England. Legendary ghostly hounds supposedly left dark marks on a place of worship. Stories and sightings of ghostly and demonic black dogs are woven through the folklore and mythology of the British Isles. Perhaps the most ancient and well-known of these entities is Black Shuck. Tales of Black Shuck, or simply Shuck, haunt rural East Anglia, the coast and countryside of the counties of Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, and Cambridgeshire. Descriptions of the creature's nature and appearance vary across time and space. What remains consistent, however, are the descriptions of its tremendous size, almost that of a horse, its shaggy black fur, and its fiery red eyes. Casual Kitty says you still multitask a lot better than me. Thank you, Kitty. Some describe it as a guardian or guide. Why did I do that? Escape. Some describe it as a guardian or guide. A guide to the lost, while others say it is an omen of death. Its name comes from the Old English school, meaning devil and terrify. The residents of Blythburgh favor the latter after the devastating events of 1577. On August 4th of that year, during Sunday services in the parish church of the Suffolk village, most of the village was gathered. Mando V with a super chat. From Armando to tidings and ghoulish festive holidays. Thank you, Armando. Much appreciated, Mando V, and much needed. Most of the village was gathered. A tremendous storm rose up and battered Blythburgh's Holy Trinity Church. Lightning repeatedly struck it, dislodging the church's spire, causing it to fall to the roof upon the gathered congregation. Amid the darkness and destruction, illuminated only by stunning flashes of lightning, a looming, shaggy black dog is said to have appeared. Black Shuck rushed upon some worshippers, knelt in prayer before dashing through the center aisle and out of the church, leaving long black scorch marks upon the large wooden doors. These hellish claw marks are known locally as the devil's fingerprints, and they remain to this day. According to experimental archaeology and researchers who study protective witch marks, these tear-shaped symbols were more likely to have been placed upon the church door intentionally with a candle or taper. Ironically, such an intentional burn was likely intended to protect the church from curses and demons, as opposed to being caused by them. Throughout the village of Blythburgh, as well as in the nearby town of Bungay, which suffered a similar horror on the same night, imagery of Black Shuck has become iconic. Bungay's coat of arms features the creature, as does the town hall's weather vane, which continues to attract lightning. What a good story at Atlas Obscura. And having completed that, let's continue on the at list verse here. And the list of 10 what? We're up to 8. 10 marks supposedly left on earth by the devil. We're at number 7. Purgatory Falls. The Purgatory Brook Falls isn't far from Mount Vernon, New Hampshire. It's a weirdly secluded location that seems like it should be surrounded by the same hustle and bustle you will find on major highways that go past. Starting in the early 1800s, it was the source of water power for all the area lumber mills, until a massive fire destroyed many of them in 1950. Must have been a forest fire. Appropriate, perhaps, considering the lore behind several of the formations along the falls. Throughout the 1800s, the Upper Falls was a popular party spot. There are some records of a hotel on the grounds, and others claim that a picnic area and pavilion were there. An overlook into a deep hole in the rocks has been given the odd name of the Devil's Bean Pot. According to the legend, the devil once sent his sights on the townspeople of Mount Vernon. Oh, this hole must be the bean pot. Interesting. He told them he was going to cook them a huge dinner with everything you might expect from a gourmet meal. He was cooking the beans in the hole on the rock, but when he grabbed the cauldron, he burned himself. The devil flew into a rage that revealed his true nature to the revelers. They fled as he blistered the nearby rock with the heat from his fire, leaving behind an imprint of his foot. Supposedly, anyone brave enough to climb into Devil's Beanpot will find names and dates carved into the rock, and you better have someone else there to help you get out of it. And you better have a rope. And an emergency technician. And a doctor and a nurse. Perhaps these are the names of the people bribed by the devil with his tasty dinners. Here we go. Davoljavaros, Devil's Town, in Serbia. Sitting in the southern part of Serbia, near Mount Radan, is Davoljavaros, a national monument and epic landscape whose name is translated as Devil's Town. The landscape has eroded into 202 tall spires of rock, some of which appear to be wearing little hats. See these little darker hats on the spires? On the natural spires? Because of the unique composition and high mineral content of the soil, or so scientists claim. Those hats were actually the product of a volcanic eruption that happened millions of years ago. But even with a perfectly reasonable scientific explanation for the land's strange appearance, interesting legends have arisen over the years. According to one of them, the devil was once so greatly annoyed by the good, religious, humble people who lived in this area that he cursed the drinking water to make them forget who was related to whom. This led to one of the greatest affronts to the religious and natural order of things, the marriage of a couple who were brother and sister. A good fairy intervened on the part of the town and prayed for an end to the relationship. As a result, the entire wedding party was turned to stone. And I guess that's the wedding party. The water that the townspeople drank there is still in the form of two springs called Devil's Water and the Red Well. Depending on the rainfall and due to the mineral-rich soil, the springs yield water that is up to 1,000 times richer in minerals than the waters of nearby springs. The high iron content has turned the riverbed red. There are a handful of other tales that supposedly explain the rock formations, and they all have a bent from hell. Some say the stone columns are devils, trapped by some clever boys from a nearby village. Others say the columns are the remains of a church or churches that were destroyed by demons. Let's check out some art.
From the depths of hell comes The Devil's Messenger, starring the master of mystery Lon Chaney and Karen Cadden.
My message. You'd have to go back. Up there.
No, I can't. I won't go back.
You'll deliver that to a Mr. Donald Powell. Don't be afraid of me.
The Devil's Messenger delivers gifts from hell, turning man into a ravaging feast.
I took a picture of that old farmhouse. There's nobody in the picture. You saw it. Was there anybody in it?
No, there wasn't.
Somebody has come out of that house, and they're coming toward me.
Back from the dead, his lovely victim seeks revenge for her horrible death at the hands of a man driven mad by a gift from hell, trapped in her icy tomb until the Devil's Messenger exposed her nakedness in her crystal prison.
Now let's get down to it.
She becomes the object of a scientist's lust. His consuming desire for her drives him to commit murder to keep her for himself. Not since Eve received the apple have gifts inflicted such unnatural consequences.
Tonight at midnight, you will be dead.
Just how do you intend to kill me?
I have no idea. I don't even know you.
Crystal ball foreshadows doom, for it is the plaything of the devil, and only he can change the events it foresees. You must see what the Devil's Messenger has in store for you.
Here we have a story entitled The Mystery of the Devil's Footprints. It's at crotonhistory.org. Is there an author given? Perhaps at the end. Negative. Anonymous author. And the author begins. And the article says, footprints in rock puzzling big scientists. Huge boulder at Croton, New York, bears the imprint of a pair of human feet. Weird legends told. One attributes mysterious footprints to his satanic majesty. And it begins, mysterious footprints in the solid rock on the east and west banks of the Hudson. Here have puzzled the scientists, who believe them to have been made by a... And that's all they show of the article. Where are the devil's footprints? This simple question, writes the author, was recently posed to a group of Crotonites, experts in local history and Hudson Valley geology, and some people who grew up here and explored all of Croton's old ruins and haunted places in their youth. Croton. I hope it's pronounced Croton. Croton? Croton like rotten? It can't be Croton like rotten, can it? They all had the same reply. What footprints? The answer takes us back more than a century to when Alfred P. Gardner purchased most of the land on Hessian Hill and built a magnificent estate. As the New York Times reported in 1906, Mr. Gardner has bought the Hessian Hill farm at Croton-on-Hudson from the Cockcroft estate. It has frontage on the Hudson and it extends back for over a mile. The Hessian Hill has an elevation of 600 feet and commands a fine view of the river. Mr. Gardner will improve the property extensively and make it his country home. Did Gardner know he had acquired the devil's footprints? We may never know, but 6 years after he purchased the property, the New York press revealed the whole fascinating story in an article that was picked up by newspapers across the country. There's Croton-on-Hudson, a 1908 map showing the location of Mr. Gardner's Hessian Hill estate. Where is that then? That says Harvey Parrington. I don't see his name. Maybe it's here? I don't immediately see the estate. You'd think it would be more obvious. Showing the location of the Hessian Hill estate. Maybe it's everything here. Mysterious, this is a quote from the article evidently. Mysterious footprints in the solid rock on the east and west banks of Hudson at Croton have puzzled scientists who believe them to have been made by primeval man before the Stone Age. On the east shore, along the old Albany Post Road, and at the bottom of a steep hill belonging to the A.P. Gardner estate, lies a huge boulder shadowed by tall trees. Its smooth surface bears the imprint of a pair of human feet placed side by side, as if a barefoot man had walked down the hill and stood on the spot, while the stone was still soft and yielding from nature's crucible. Every toe was clearly defined, and judging from the mold he left in the granite, the foot of this ancient man was both large and shapely. Behind the footprints, all the way to the top of the rock, are a series of peculiar indentations, such as the links of a heavy chain would make in the soft earth. Exactly opposite, on High Tor Mountain, on the other side of the Hudson, the footprints again appear on the rock, but with the heels turned toward the river, as if the man was traveling away from it due west. By actual measurement, the footprints on both sides of the river correspond in every particular, and were undoubtedly made by the same pair of feet. Many weird and wonderful legends have been read from the footprints in the rock. One of them attributes them to the devil, who was chained up in Connecticut for a number of years, but finally escaped and fled into New York. dragging his chain after him. He paused on the boulder at the foot of Hessian Hill to rest before he continued to his flight to the vast Adirondack wilderness. And the Adirondack wilderness is still vast. And it's still wilderness. Most of it. The indentations in the Hessian Hill rock are pointed out as the marks of his chain, and the footprints on High Tor as further corroborative evidence of the truth of the tale. Another story relates that a caveman was approached from the rear by a terrible many-legged serpent as he stood upon the boulder. What species is that, serpent with legs? Many-legged. And that he was so frightened, he leaped clear across the Hudson and landed on the other side. That'd be a good trick. The Hudson's like as wide as a football field is long. The indentations are supposed to have been made by the serpent's legs. Takahama Olsen, too, says, that would be my ex-husband. And the story continues. The old newspaper article. A famous professor, on first viewing the footprints, advanced the theory that they were made by the missing link before he shed his caudal appendage. No idea what that means, but there's a number 3 here. What is the caudal appendage? Please be kind. It's a tail. Okay. These footprints were made by the missing link before he shed his tail, which trailed in the prehistoric day behind him, while he scanned the surrounding landscape for something good for breakfast. This accounted for the indentations and scored 1 for Darwinian theory. The devil legend seems to have hit the public fancy, though, for the big boulder at Hessian Hill is known as the Devil's Rock, and Croton people point to the strange fact that nothing will grow in the unholy footprints, while the surface of the rock elsewhere is covered with gray-green lichen and thick moss. The Mohicans, who built their signal fires on top of Hessian Hill before the first Dutch traders settled there to give rum and firearms and furs, regarded the giant boulder with deep veneration and believed the footprints to have been made by the Great Spirit when he created the world. Boy, them footprints is old. The New York Press says nothing about how and when the devil's footprints were discovered in Croton, but they must have been known for some time. As far back as 1895, they were pointed out as a local landmark to the New York Daily Tribune reporter, writing an article about the area between Terrytown and Peekskill. And then there's another quote, I guess from that article. At one of the highest points on the Albany Post Road, the guide shows a place known as Devil's Track, where the imprint of 2 human feet can be seen in the rock. That's where he stood when he jumped across the river, goes the story. And on the other side, near Haverstraw, you can see the footprints on the rock to correspond with these. As the river is about 4 miles wide here, no one argues the point when the native says it was a pretty good jump. 4 miles wide. Yeah, I doubt it. What year is that from? 1895? 4 miles. I kind of doubt it. Maybe. It turns out that the devil has been jumping around the world for millions of years, leaving what are called pterosomatoglifs. What is pterosomatoglifs? Leaving what are called pterosomatoglifs, naturally occurring representations of human or animal body parts incised in rock, though some pterosomatoglifs are man-made. As early as the 1830s, archaeologists searching for authentic dinosaur or bird footprints knew there were naturally occurring examples, occasionally caused by the action of water. Here's an 1836 account by an Amherst College professor, which we will not be reading because it's about dinosaurs. But we will be able to check out some art.
Hello? Bloody kid. I'm sorry what happened before, you know? I didn't mean that to sound that way, I really didn't. What in the hell is that? No! No! How about 9 o'clock? Are you free? Okay. I'll get some wine.
Here at lookandlearn.com is a story by anonymous. Off at the bottom. There's a story by Anonymous entitled Unexplained Footprints in the Snow Might Have Been Left by the Devil. And the author begins. What manner of creature was it that in 1855 traveled over 100 miles through South Devonshire in a single night, leaving its mysterious hoof marks in the newly fallen snow? The prints were of a kind never seen before or since, and hundreds of people were witnesses to them. Some of them superstitious folk, who believed the owner of the feet to be Satan himself. Others people of education, who studied the footmarks seriously and soberly, scratching their heads and putting forward all manner of theories, not one of which made sense. The footprints were roughly 4 inches long and 2 inches across, shaped not unlike a donkey's shoe, although sometimes appearing to be more distinctly cloven. Cloven, I guess, means split in two. The track was in a continuous straight line, each print being exactly 8 inches from the next, and neither to the left nor to the right of it. Whatever it was seemed to be two-legged. No man walks with feet in a straight line. No man is cloven-footed or shoed like a donkey. Some bird, it was suggested, may have made the prints, but what bird could walk 100 miles in 14 hours of darkness? What bird walks at all without ever taking to the wing? The emu? The ostrich? Were there emus and ostriches roaming the Devon countryside in the 1850s? Rhetorical question. The answer is no. The trail might be said to have started at Exmouth, and then to have wandered through the villages of Raleigh, Bitton, Topsham, and Limestone. Here it vanished on the shores of the estuary of the River Exe, only to reappear on the far side of the estuary, which the creature seems to have crossed. It continues southwards, zigzagging through several villages before it reached Dawlish, Teignmouth, Newton Abbey, and Torquay. Whatever it was, distance was no object, nor were obstacles. The hoof marks in the snow passed over fields, over high walls. Mando V, thank you for becoming a producer. Armando becoming an executive producer of the show. Thank you, Armando. Much appreciated, sir. And were frequently seen to approach a house, carry on over its snow-covered roof, and proceed straight on from the far side. Sometimes these devil's hoof marks marched up to the closed doors or barns or other outbuildings, and continued on the other side of such buildings in a dead straight line, without passing over the roof. In fact, the insides of these closed buildings showed no sign of anything having passed through them. Hayricks and strawstracks, snow-covered hayricks and strawstracks. I think they mean, I can't remember the American term. Hay. Hay in a pile. Hayricks and strawstacks, snow-covered, showed the footmarks passing right over their tops and continuing on the level ground below. The impression of every print was clean and clear, and there was no disturbance of snow around any one of them. The date was February 8th in 1855. On the morning of this day, when the devil's hoofmarks were noticed from Exmouth to Torquay, they were, of course, other footprints in the snow, marks of dogs, cats, foxes, and naturally men. But all of these, including the scamperings of birds, had disturbed the snow about them. But the devil, if the devil it was, had walked clearly and with no nonsense about him, straight ahead. This thing was no rabbit, cat, fox, or hare, and certainly not a four-footed donkey marching neatly over the rooftops, through orchards, or up to front doors where occasionally it came to a full stop, with no line ahead and no sign of retreat. Cottagers stayed nervously behind their locked doors, and would not stir outside for fear of meeting Old Nick. The less superstitious Devonians were not afraid, merely puzzled. Some of these people made careful drawings of the footprints and sent them to magazines such as the Illustrated London News, accompanied by their own theories, of course. Hungry badgers were suggested, wandering otters, or gulls upon the march. One clever fellow, a Mr. Thomas Fox, claimed that the marks were those of a leaping rat, and submitted a drawing of shoe shapes, forepaws and backpaws on the ground together, and looking not at all unlike other on-the-spot drawings made at the time. But what leaping rat would leap 100 miles in 14 hours of darkness? Maybe several leaping rats. No, it just didn't hold water. Any more than one gentleman's suggestion that the brute was an escaped kangaroo. Another serious naturalist had no doubt that the footprints were those of raccoons. How on earth, asked somebody quite logically, could a pack of raccoons have descended upon Devonshire from North America in a single night, never to be seen again? The wise men wrangled and argued and theorized. One of them, doing clever sums, said that if only one weird traveler was allowed for, and the overall distance was reduced to a modest 40 miles, then the beast, during the hours of darkness, must have maintained an average of 6 steps per second. Roughly 25 miles an hour, uphill, down dale, over walls, hayricks, and house roofs. What creature known to man was capable of such a feat? The most absurd theory of all came from an anonymous writer in Devon. This person, 5 days after the footprints had melted away, read of an exhausted swan with a silver collar, which had arrived in northern France. The engraved collar bore the name and address of a titled owner in Germany. The Devonshire theorist thought it more than likely that the German prince had patted the swan's feet in a horseshoe shape, so that the bird would not damage the garden in which it was originally kept. Into the mild airs which followed, the snow, the mysterious footmarks vanished forever. It's not exactly true. I think in 2009, the same footsteps did return to the same area. It was in 2009 they printed. And there were some quite interesting photographs that matched precisely the drawings that were submitted to English publications of the time. English periodicals of the time, he wanted to say. And here's another article, which we don't have time to read, about the night the devil's footprints were left across Devon. Dark was the night trailer. Any pictures? Any pictures? No, none of the pictures here. Let's check out some art.
This was a lump of land that was separated by a steep gorge with a fast-flowing river, and depending on the amount of rain which fell in that part of Wales, which was heavy to very heavy to extremely heavy, it was always a fair flow of water going through. So they decided that to get to the grazing on the other side, which is obviously first-class grazing, they would need some help. So the woman who owned the land on the farm side put out the word that she would be willing to pay a builder to come and build a bridge across to this nice pasture. And builders came from various parts of South Wales, builders came from Mid Wales, and I'm told even a builder came down from North Wales and had a look at this, and it was going to be too difficult, and if it wasn't too difficult it was going to be too expensive. And then one day a complete stranger turned up and said, I hear you want a bridge built. And the wife said, yes, I'd like to get my cows and my goats across into that lovely grazing over there. I said, this is a big gorge. Oh, I said, the stranger, I'll build you a bridge. But he said, there's one condition. He said, I don't want your money. No. He says, but the first person to cross that bridge I will claim. That'll be my personal property. So, yeah, okay, right. She had noticed his cloven hooves under his, yes. He only worked at night. And every day when they went out, there was more of the bridge built. And it was a marvellous bridge, a wonderful bridge. And by, after very few nights, the bridge is complete. Right, well, who's going to cross the bridge first? So who's going to be brave enough? The wifey is very shrewd, because she suddenly pulls out a batch loaf. Now a batch loaf, famous in Wales, they're round. And she cut out the loaf and she said, well, here we go, we got a loaf to celebrate the opening of my new bridge. And with that she rolled it across the bridge to the grass, and the goat took off after it. Whee! The first to cross the bridge was the goat, and the goat went off with the devil. But that's only part of the story, because anybody who keeps goats realises that you can never see a billy goat for the entirety of the day and night. Now, you'd think that if you sat and watched that goat for 24 hours, you would see it for 24 hours. Every billy goat slips away for 1 hour during the day or night, because it has to go back to the devil. And the devil combs its beard and listens to all the stories that the goat can tell it. So billy goats are direct familiars to the devil himself.
Here at lolwatt.com are 10 marks supposedly left on Earth by the devil. Does this match the other list we were at? That's the Goldstone, huh? You see how it's near the edge of the park? This park is huge. It's within sight of the road here. See that? Like I say, the Goldstone is near a corner of the park, not the centerpiece. It's a rectangular park, so I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to locate the centerpiece anyway. There's the Devil's Town. How about the Martens Lane Rock in the U.S.? Another street in the world seems to have the imprint of the devil. The Martens Lane was getting repaired when construction workers found a rather mysterious imprint left under a huge rock. The imprint was thought to exist way before it was found, according to legend that tells the story of a slave by the name of Just. There was a huge sinner and sat on the rock when the devil visited. The devil challenged Just to a singing competition, and when Just bested him, the devil stomped his foot and the imprint was left in the road. So that's the Just story rock. I guess that's the footprint there with the toes. 4 toes or whatever? Or is it the indentation in the top? They said it was under the rock, but I assume that's the rock turned over. Devil's Arrows in England. The 3 standing stones at Boroughbridge are almost 23 feet tall and are thought to be a huge phenomenon and carry the name of Devil's Arrows. The stones are thought to be a part of a bigger complex that came when the devil got angry and threw arrows at the nearby village but missed. The arrows turned into stones when they landed. Devil's Footprint, USA. In Manchester, Maine, there's a rock with a devil's footprint on it. A footprint that cannot be chiseled away. Why would you want to do that to ruin it? The whole area is thought to be something of the devil's sanctuary, with cars breaking down and people going missing when passing through it. The devil's footprint is thought to have appeared when one of the road workers sold his soul to the devil, and to mark the event, the devil put his footprint there, and the man was never seen again. Teufelsbrücke, Switzerland. Europe features a huge number of stories of devil's bridges. The locations at which those bridges are built were too difficult for human builders, so they decided to turn to the devil. One of the most famous ones is the Teufelsbrücke Bridge in Switzerland. Actually, you should just say Teufelsbrücke, because Brücke is bridge, so. It's the Teufelsbrücke in Switzerland that was built a long time ago in order for the local goat keepers to be able to take their flocks across the mountains. Dinkamasi says, here in Australia we have the Devil's Marbles. Devil's Punch Bowl, England. Let's look those up real quick. What the hell? Oh, those are pretty good too. There's the Devil's Claw Marks in Sanday and Ladykirk. Okay, so I forgot about it. Devil's Marbles, okay. The Devil's Marbles in Australia. Let's get those images. The entrance to Devil's Marbles. Interesting. They're huge marbles. Wow, look at that. Yeah, I've seen these. They're pretty amazing. Thank you, Dick Amossi. Devil's Punch Bowl, England. The Devil's Punch Bowl is a dry hollow. Doesn't look that dry here. In southern England, that came to be when the devil jumped between two hills, causing a huge depression to appear. Apparently, he was also seen fighting with Thor, and scooped large quantities of soil in order to throw them at Thor, which made the hollow even bigger. Like the sinkhole there. And I don't see the rest of the marks. What's going on? That's it? I guess there were a few before, but we've seen them already. Okay, let's check out the ones in Lady Kirk Sanday. On the island of Sanday, there is a village and a parish, both called Lady, after the old Lady Kirk there. The church is now a roofless ruin, but you can still climb up the stone stairs that once led from the outside to the upper level. On the balustrade, as you reach the top, there is a most curious sight to be seen. A stone with deep marks, as if scratched by very strong claws. These are known as the Devil's Claw marks, and the story goes as follows. There once was a minister preaching in the Lady Kirk. Every Sunday he preached against sin, especially adultery. And every Monday to Saturday he himself enjoyed precisely those activities against which he preached. One night, as the minister was coming out of his mistress's house and heading for home, the devil himself stood there before him, tried to grab him to take him to hell. But the minister was too quick for him. He ran for his life until he reached the sanctuary of the church and shut the door on the devil, who was left raging outside and clawing at the stonework. And there you can see the marks of his 6 sharp claws to this very day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's even one in between here. It might be 7 claws. Okay, let's check out some art.